I'm done.
This is the CHRILLCAST. I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
Whoa.
And this is Wildcard Wednesdays. What do we
Okay,
talk about on Wildcard Wednesdays, Chris?
my screen did something strange when you were saying it's Wildcard Wednesday. But okay, we're going to be talking about downloadable content and microtransactions, both of
They
which
suck.
are bad words in my book. But let's see what the origin is here, right? Downloadable content. I believe that came first. I could be wrong, but I don't ever remember microtransactions before downloadable content.
At least not on home consoles.
Exactly. So, precursors to DLC, the earliest form of downloadable content were offerings of full games, such as on the Atari 2600's Game Line service, which allowed users to download games using a telephone line. A similar service, Sega Channel, allowed for the downloading of games to the Sega Genesis over a cable line.
However, there was no save feature, so once you turned off your system, it would delete the game.
Yeah, because it would load it into your RAM. Let's see here. On personal computers, the popularity and speed of the internet connections arose. So did the popularity of using the internet for digital distribution of media. User-created game mods and maps were distributed exclusively online, as they were mainly created by people without the infrastructure capable of distributing the content through physical media. In 1997, Cavedog offered a new unit every month as free downloadable content for their real-time strategy computer game, Total Annihilation. That's probably the earliest I've ever heard of downloadable content existing on a computer. It usually was RTSs back in the day, like Age of Empires would have expansions.
Yep.
Bethesda really started it on consoles with the Elder Scrolls games. Horse Armor DLC, which was immediately hacked and put out for everybody to grab. But
Yep. But before that, I remember getting the Halo 2 map packs on my Xbox. And you can actually buy the separate disc for it, which I didn't realize that's what that was, but I actually downloaded mine from the internet.
for Halo 2,
Mm-hmm.
how'd you do that?
It was you could go to like the when you boot up the game and you go to Xbox Live. There was a little section for like downloadable content. You can download the map packs. It's like the Beastacular pack, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I had the disc.
Yeah, I didn't know what the disc was, and I remember trying to buy it by itself or rent it by itself, and the guy wouldn't let me do it.
My first experience with Halo DLC was actually Halo Combat Evolved on the PC. There were quite a few downloadable maps actually for that, believe it or not. I don't know if you would be aware of that, but they definitely were never on the Xbox to my knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know about the first Halo game, but definitely the second Halo game I downloaded the map packs. And then I also downloaded free content for Zoo Tycoon on the computer. You can get like the Yeti and the Mexican restaurant as a downloadable content for free.
So I never really had an issue with DLC until this controversial topic came up. There were games shipping that had the DLC on the disc locked to the user, and you could not use that DLC unless you paid for it. Something that was physically already on the disc. You could not use it unless you paid extra money to unlock the content on the disc, which is super scummy. And of course, it was EA and BioWare with Mass Effect 3.
Mm-hmm. Freaking EA.
And then there was questioning on some other games as to whether or not content on the disc was locked out after the game was launched due to updates to the game.
Yeah, like Destiny.
Exactly. So, here's my opinion on DLC. I don't mind good DLC. And by good, I mean Mass Effect 2 style DLC, where it adds a whole nother chapter to the game with a start and a finish that connects to the actual story without dragging you too far away from the content you already have. Or like an Age of Empires expansion, which actually
Or
has...
The Witcher 3, which is like a whole nother game.
Can I finish? You're doing what I do.
Nope.
Or like an Age of Empires where you have an entire extra campaign that has nothing... It doesn't have to do with the first campaign, but it expands the game by a large margin. Those types of DLC, I am good with. It's this locked on the disc DLC, or like a character that you couldn't have unless you pay an extra $5. or DLC that's not actually DLC, like horse armor DLC, which is basically, in my opinion, a skin and a microtransaction type of deal, but not really, because it's like $10. It's almost a macro transaction at that point. But I don't mind DLC when it's done correctly. Now we're going to get to the thing that I really dislike after Will tells me what he thinks of downloadable content.
All right. Well, I completely agree with you. If it's, I guess it might be a personal thing where it actually becomes worth it, but good content. So, DLC, like, you mentioned the games you're talking about, but also The Witcher 3, where you can essentially add on a whole nother campaign. And paying for that makes sense because you already have a great base game. So if you don't want to pay for it, you have a full game already. It really is an add-on to the game at that point. What's really frustrating me is when they use DLC to finish a game. So you've bought a game at full price, it's not finished, and then they want you to pay for DLC that should have already been in the game, and it's an exorbitant amount of money. So a lot of companies are doing that now, and it's just terrible business practice. Just take the extra couple months to put out a full game, and then if you want to have DLC on top of that, that's fine. And the thing is, with microtransactions, I'm okay with it again. I hate them on console, but I can accept it as far as it is just like cosmetic items. But now they have it where it's linked to progression in some games. They lock behind, or there's certain content where they know that you want it. So even though maybe in previous games that was like the first character you would get, but now that character is locked behind a paywall, so you have to pay to get, say, Darth Vader or something. That's ridiculous. So they're just trying to figure out ways of pumping out games faster without finishing them and getting more money. Exactly. So both microtransactions and DLC at one time was okay, but every time I hear that word now, it makes me feel sick.
So if you wouldn't mind me adding on to that, I totally forgot about DLC to finish the game, where it's not actually like optional essentially. Dead Rising 4 had the most egregious DLC I have ever seen on a game. They essentially said, here's the ending, but it was a horrible ending. They let the main character, spoiler alert, they let the main character straight up die and become a zombie. And then they created this DLC called Frank Rising, which is the true ending to the game, which is the one that's going to be canon. If you're going to have a DLC ending, it better be an alternate, not canon ending.
Yep.
And then they did the same. They actually did something similar to Dead Rising 2. They released a prequel, and I didn't mind this as much, but if you don't know what happened in the not epilogue, the epilogue is what I'm going to call it, the post-game DLC, then parts of Dead Rising 3 aren't going to make sense, and parts of Dead Rising 4 aren't going to make sense storyline-wise. So if you actually care about the ridiculous story behind the Dead Rising games, then you're going to miss out on it. And I think that's ridiculous too. At least do what Mass Effect 2 did when they released on the PS3 and give us the comic in the beginning, so that people who care about the story, if you're going to do this DLC beginning end crap, at least give the people the story so they can follow the plot.
I agree with that.
Microtransactions, the dirtiest word in the industry. So I'd never really noticed microtransactions, to be entirely honest, until I started seeing free-to-play games.
Yeah.
And if it's a free-to-play game, I understand the logic behind microtransactions. You're getting content for free, and they have to make money somehow. And advertising can only do so much. So like Clash of Clans is my first experience where I really saw microtransactions. You could get these gems to upgrade your buildings faster. You could get various upgrades quicker. And you could buy specialized artwork content. None of it really impacted how I played, because even though you could get things faster, it elevated you to another tier. So you were competing with people on the same tier as you, and it was still competitively equal for the people you were facing. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that was my first real experience with Clash of Clans, and I found out really quickly that spending money does not make a good game. with microtransactions because I spent, I don't know, I bought like a pack. It was like a normally $20 pack. I got it for $2 because they do that to trick you into buying it.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked on me once, and I learned my lesson. And I have not bought really any microtransaction related stuff in a long time. But that's kind of my experience learning about microtransactions in the first place. When would you say the first time you noticed microtransactions was, Will?
Same thing on a mobile phone. So I don't know. I don't remember what game it was, but it was a Candy Crush type game where essentially you could, pay to get more gems or something like that. Yeah. So you could pay. The thing is, I never had any money, so it was never something that was alluring to me. I guess the first time that really I was tempted to buy microtransactions would be in Halo 5, where, in previous Halos, you earned the armor through achievements or something you did in the campaign or something like that, or like a Vidoc, or not a Vidoc, but the Vidmaster challenge.
Oh, right.
And so, you have to buy those rec packs now to get those armor sets. So there was a time where I might have spent a couple dollars trying to get a certain armor that I wanted, and I felt so sick after. I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what they're trying to do, is get nostalgic Halo fans to dish out money for these things that we used to be able to just earn. And it's all randomized, so you can't actually purchase exactly what you want, which is also something really frustrating about microtransactions, is that randomization. And I guess it's getting more into loot boxes now, but
yeah. Gambling.
Surprise mechanics.
Digital gambling.
Yeah. That doesn't. Did you see the response that the ESRB had about the digital gambling in NBA 2020? I guess.
No, I didn't.
Basically, well, did you? All right. So, did you see the outrage about the fact that they actually have a slot machine in the game?
Yes, I did see that.
So there. Did you see the reveal of how they actually rate games and the process that they do it with? They don't play the video game.
Don't they usually have the developer give them an overview of what the game is, and then kind of
20-minute video
self-police, essentially?
It's a 20-minute video they send to ESRB.
Well, think about how many games they rate in a year and how many people they actually have on staff. I mean, it would be crazy to think that they play.
I understand. I get the concept and why they would do that.
But AAA games probably deserve at least 10 minutes of gameplay.
Yeah. Seriously, how would you know what's in it?
Right. So they, I mean, they could just say, here's the movie, here's the game, throw them a mixtape with, like, I don't know, Snoop Dogg rapping, and like, what is this? Okay, rated M? I don't know.
Yep.
It's Snoopy Snoop's Shotgun Sunday.
Well, so the reason why I brought that up, though, is that developers have realized that they can put the microtransactions in after the game is released, because it's already rated.
Yes.
So it can still be E for everyone, even though there is, and not have the warning about in-game purchases.
And that's where I have a problem with that practice, because if a game is rated M and a parent buys it for their kid anyways, that's a conscious decision by the parent to let their kids be exposed to that content. If it's rated E for everyone and it has content like loot boxes and gambling, and that is not explicitly stated in the game, on the game box, in the artwork, on the ESRB rating, that is, I think that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Because if it's rated M and I buy it for my kid, that's on me. If it's rated E and I buy it for my kid, that's on the developer, the publisher, and the ESRB.
Yep, I agree.
Parents, do your research. But microtransactions in general, on a free-to-play game, I'm fine with it. That's the business model. That's what you have to do. On a $60 game that I have brought home, Madden, on my loading screens I see advertisements. I see this Madden digital card game thing. I see this All-Star Hall of Fame thing. Basically the whole title screen except for franchise, online play, and then like single match. And maybe like season. I think you might still have season mode, and then there is a single player mode on 19. I want to say. Other than those 5 modes, like every other square on that is some microtransaction, some advertisement, or something you can buy. And it's like, I didn't pay $60 to pay more money. It's like I didn't spend. So just for example, a couple years back, my wife and I went to Cedar Point, and we found out really quickly you can't put like your cell phone and your hat and your backpack in the bins anymore. So every ride required a microtransaction to put our stuff in a locker. They have fixed this since, I've been told. But at the time, I was like, I'm never going back here again. Microtransactions at a roller coaster park, if I have to pay $2 per ride after I paid $60 to get in, that's ridiculous. And that's a one-day thing.
Yeah, well, they're preying on little kids, in all honesty. I mean, who else is going to fall victim to that but kids who can use their parents' credit cards to spend a couple $1,000s in a night trying to get that player that they want? I think that you can't even get all of the players without purchasing them now.
Well, it'd take an exorbitant amount of time to unlock enough points to get all of the players.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. I remember when I was playing Madden, 2008, 2009, you would get all of the teams, and you would have all of the modes, and there's no microtransactions. It was just a full game. It was great.
That's why Madden 08 is great. Thanks, Scott the Waz, for pointing that out to me. But so I'm 50-50 on DLC and microtransactions. There can be good DLC, and there can be not in your face microtransactions that I don't care about. They might be required for a free to play game, and DLC may make a game better. So in that respect, I don't have a problem with them. It's when you use that to further your agenda with making tons and tons and tons of money on top of the money you're already making on a $60 game, or leaving content out that should have been there in the first place. That's when I have an issue with both microtransactions and DLC.
Agreed.
Anyway, this has been an episode of Wildcard Wednesday with the CHRILLCAST. I'm Chris.
And I'm Will.
And we will catch you
on the next CHRILLCAST.